This you've seen before, and it talks about that the number of cell types will double, and that there is this study in dendritic cells and monocytes where it appeared that the traditional number of cells was 6, and now it's going to 12, and so therefore we thought all cell types would probably double, and that means that in the kidney and in white blood cells in general you go from 26 to 52. So that was the world as I knew it at the time that I wrote the exam. And Ishita is doing a project where she had to write a summary about this study on the impact of the Human Cell Atlas project. So do you want to tell us what happened next? So she's writing this thing, she's putting down the references, she's going to show it to me, and
well, basically, me and Dr. Solez had talked about how using Human Cell Atlas and single sequencing methods, most of the cell types in most of our organ systems is going to double from the types that we have right now. So we were kind of going on that assumption because one of the early papers, like based on this that we've read, it's looking at what white blood cells. So and that number went from 6 to 12 in that paper after they did their single sequencing. So after I read that, we just kind of assumed it doubled, but then I found another paper in which it was claiming, like in the title, that it actually just went from 6 to 10. So
right. So yeah. That's here, you see. So she found this article, which seemed to wreck everything for me. It wrecked the exam question, it wrecked my whole world, at least temporarily. And then there were 10. Dendritic cells and monocytes undergo a reclassification. So I was really impressed that she had found this. I thought, oh my God, what do we do now? And so on. And for 2 days I stewed about what to tell you about the fact that I gave you an exam question that has no right answer and so on. But then, this morning, I got up at 4 a.m. and began to research this. So does this look like a journal article to you? It's not. It's a newsletter article. This is the newsletter of like the Hematology Society. And so it's not a sort of primary author who's actually studied this stuff. He's just talking about the other article in Science that we already referenced. And so does that mean that he's right, that there are only 10 cells? Well, if you go back to that original Science article, and it's the same whether you read the text or whether you like pictures. You know, there's that Andy Warhol quote, I never read, I only look at pictures. So whichever way you do it, you don't get 10 here, you get 11, right? You get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then if you read the text of the paper to the very end, you have to read the whole paper to the last paragraph, they say that they think that there are probably even additional cell types that they cannot detect using their current technology. So finally I realized that 12 is fine. 12 is probably the real answer, and so I didn't screw up on the exam, and those of you who picked double, that's right, and we still use that as a model for everything else and so on. But the anxiety that I went through is really quite interesting. So that's the reality of what happened to us. But that's just part of one of the interesting things here. So there's a kind of politic about this idea that there must be a precise number. I think you as students kind of want that. You don't want a prof who just gives you vague generalities and never gives you anything precise, right? The more numbers I give you, the better a lecturer you think I am because I've got the good stuff, right? But actually, in the human cell atlas field, what is happening is that it's becoming less and less clear what is the difference between cell types, subtypes, and states. You can imagine a cell that goes through various different states. It divides, it generates various kinds of protein in the cytoplasm and all kinds of stuff. So they might look very different. And you say, well, it's all the same cell, but maybe it's going to become hard in the long run, now that we can detect so many differences between cells, to know what is a cell type, what is a subtype, what is simply a change in state and not a change in type. And so, as cool as it is that I had all these hard numbers like from 6 to 12, it's probably not exactly 12, it's probably more than that, and it depends upon how you define cell type and subtype and so on. So let me show you now another thing we've been thinking about. So the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I was thinking about this. Are there things that I know that young people don't know that they don't need to know? And so therefore, no, I think this is a thing that a lot of young people don't know that you do need to know. It's one of the best things written in the 60s, I think, the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And it said that the meaning of life was 42, so maybe in a lot of organs in the body, it's actually 52. The other thing that might intrigue you is this idea that the history of the analysis of the urine goes back 6,000 years. Now, I told you that before. Did that seem questionable to you? The thing that makes that questionable is that's the history, the period of time that we've had written language. The first society in Mesopotamia, the Sumerians, the first human society to have a written language, that writing of that language began 6,000 years ago. So why would that work that they would begin writing about urine right away? It seems like there are more important human concerns, So where does that come from? And it's very interesting. Once again, it's something, Ishita and I have sort of discovered together, but there's this book that everybody in medicine refers to when they're talking about the history of examination of the urine. They all go back to this 1911 book. And you see it has a lot of cool features. You notice the painting here in the front matter. Do you notice anything missing? Something missing there. Can you see anything missing? If you were going to write a book, would you have something that's not here? This is the start of the chapter that describes this. There is no author. It was funded by the Burroughs Wellcome Company. It's a book that they created, but no human being is given the responsibility of having written it. We have no idea who wrote what's inside, and it is the reference for this idea that the examination of the urine has existed for 6,000 years. So if you look here on page 12, you will find that it says the period of around 4000 BC had entered the various changes in color and constitution of the urine, blah, 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 blah. So that's where that comes from. In any textbook that you read, and this, you'll find this idea that we've been examining the urine for 6,000 years is replete throughout the medical literature. It all comes from this one reference. And actually, it talks about two peoples there, the Sumerians and the Babylonians. The Babylonians didn't have written language until 2500 BC, so they couldn't possibly have been writing about it 6,000 years ago. So we're on this. We have young people researching this, and within the next year or so, we will know what the actual history is. So what are your thoughts about this? Were you suspicious of the 6,000 from the beginning, or?
Well, after figuring out that written language also started 6,000 years ago, I was suspicious that the first thing that was ever written was verb.
like a baby, the first thing it says is urine. Yeah, it just doesn't seem logical somehow. So anyway, we're going to find out about that. Okay.